Thank you so much, dear Nada, for joining us today. Nada is an expert in the field of Arabic calligraphy and the founder of Build Arabic Design Festival. She won several awards in design and had many exhibitions all over the world. What I especially like is her kinetic typography that really stands out in the area of typography.
Thank you. So we can start right now. Welcome everyone again. So good morning. The title of the talk today is Arabic Typography, Static and Kinetic. So just let me see. Okay, so what I will focus on and the work that you will see right now today in the presentation is basically Kufic and in particular square Kufic. But what I want to say and mention is that I'm a specialized in the Kufic calligraphy script. I have certification in that calligraphic style. I studied graphic design in the university, but I did calligraphy aside on my own under the supervision of master calligrapher Khudair al-Bursaidi. He's from Egypt. So anyways, now we will start more going into the visuals. So here, as you see on the left, the primary Kufic, which is this artwork is dates back to the 8th century in Iraq. And this is the later on a sample of a stylized square Kufic with a bit of stylization. This is the 19th century. The square Kufic developed later than the, of course, because as you see that the usage or the start of the square developed on architectural buildings and in interior decorations based on the tiles and the building blocks and using the square as a module and working with concrete and tiles. So that was some sort of like the lens or where the style came from is as a simplification to what you saw earlier on the primary and on the primary Kufic, which is mostly hand drawn versus this, which is actually using the material to create the style. So as if it's like pixel style. And you see here also with the different tiles mosaic together to form the writing. They have used the square as an inspiration, the square Kufic, to create different various artworks and graphic pieces. So here, for example, from Iraq, Hashim Samarji, and here Magdi Abdelaziz from Egypt, and Mustafa Adib in Lebanon. I'm showing you in different countries so that you can see the diversity in style and in the stroke. Like, for example, here you would see that the square is not a square, it's taking a hexagonal shape, and it's working with the geometric pattern also to integrate and to create some sort of pleated design, versus here working on the reflection and on the intersection of the lines. And here is some sort of working on repetition to create a pattern with the same word repeated 4 times. Here you see that, for example, here Abdallah Arnaout from Syria also has used the square Kufic as inspiration, because the style of the square gives you lots of different options. And so what he did is that he used the square Kufic style in his graphic design poster to create bilingual text for a poster. And here, for example, Kamal Bulata from Palestine, he used also the square Kufic, working on positive, negative, working on reflection. Just I wanted to note that the artwork that you see is not all in red, but I created everything in red, black, and white for the sake of the presentation. So if you are curious to see how the work looks like in actual, in reality, you can write down the names and check the artwork for yourself. So as we mentioned here, working on the reflection and on the positive negative figure ground reversal, some sort of. Here, Ma'moun Sakkal, who's from Syria, his speciality is in square kufik, also has created this very beautiful pleated design with the words Alhamdulillah. Here, calligrapher Munir al-Sharani, sorry. Munir al-Sharani he's a very well-known calligrapher. He works a lot on developing the Arabic script, and you can see he did massive work on the Arabic script and on developments of the script. And here, as you see, the use of the square kufik in very dynamic diagonal style. And here it's more like rectangular way of working. It's very inspirational to look at his work. The square kufik has rules and guides to work with, but of course, depending on the vision of the designer or the calligrapher, you can adjust and you can manipulate and you can work on it in a more, depending on your vision, you can manipulate your design depending on the idea that you have in your head, whether it's a logo or a poster or a sentence or whatever it is that you want to design. So I will show you more examples later on, but here I'm just showing you the guide, that the main guide of the letters in the isolated, in the initial, in the medial, and in the final form, because as you know, in the Arabic script, each letter has different positioning based on where it is placed. So these are the different kind of glyphs. Here, this is a student project. I gave the students to design fonts, but here they did it as a letter set style, which is some sort of placing the letters all on an acetate, just to give this is for presentation purposes, so they placed it like that. So here each student was inspired by a different element as a starting point. The one on the right is inspired by the Syrian mosaic work, which is done with wood and different material based on the actual, as you see here, the intersection of the patterns and the details. So it is inspired by the mosaic. This one is the kufik, square kufik, inspired by the actual emerald gemstone. And this one is basically inspired by the origami and the origami folds to form the different letters. These are also different variations done by different students in the course. Here, these are some sort of giving some sort of depth or a repetition to create some parallel motion. And here, inspired by the stitches of the embroidery. So yes, there is some sort of a grid, but in here you can see even within the one grid, what can someone do within that to create something new. This is done by another student inspired by the barbed wires. So they created the barbed wire square kufik. This is another stitch style embroidery stitching also. This is the recent work done with the student this semester. Actually, I wanted to include it just so that you can see the playfulness of what you can do. It is not following the square as square 100%. It is taking a bit from square, a bit from the Fatimid script with all the different motion that is there. And here you see that the student created, of course, the full character set, but here she's showing the anatomy of the letters, but just to give you an idea of what can you do with only a square. And even if you want to create some sort of playfulness, you can say we are inspired by, but we can do our own. At least you have a starting point, you have something to work with. This is a work of a student also working with the square kufik, but in here the student formed the map. So she formed an image of the map of the Arabian world with the different countries positioned where they are on the map. So for example, here, Egypt, Sudan, Oman, for example, Syria, Lebanon, Qatar, Bahrain, etc. So as you see that you can create illustrations based on the square grid, and you can actually manipulate and stretch or figure out how you want to design based on a concept that you have, and you want to portray it through your calligraphy or design elements. And right now, I will take you to another project done that I'm working on with my students for quite some time. And with the first project, when I launched the Square Kufic project to my students, I always asked them to create their names, their first name, family name, certain words and certain sentences that they all have to do. So one of the words is بالعربي, which is in Arabic, translated in English. So here, as you see, the different students created different interpretations and different designs of the word بالعربي, which is in Arabic, using the Square Kufic. Some have worked on the square as a square, and some have worked on a pattern, some have worked on a certain form like a heart or a diamond, or for example, as you see here, or with contoured or with filled with different thicknesses, creating different designs. The challenge here is, how can we all work on the same words, but you need to create various different applications. Like when you're working, for example, on a logo, if you let's say there is a competition and you have to all work on, for example, a logo, each one of you would be designing it differently. Here, this exercise or this project just shows the richness of the style and what you can do as young designers to create different designs that are unique for your portfolio. So here, this is the same design done by the same student, but working on different proportions. And as you see, even when you play on the proportion, when you stretch, it's like variable fonts, trying to create this sort of stretchy style versus the compact style. So depends also on your vision, and it has all to do with your vision as designers on what you want to do and what is the result that you want to have after all. This is also for the same word, بالعربي. And here showing you that even with one design, you can create patterns and you can create interesting compositions for your posters, if you're doing posters. Here, trying to work on some sort of depth illusion, working with a triangle as a module, as a grid, rather than the circle or the square, sorry. This is the same design, the same unit design, but here you can do different patterns with the same unit to create a different result. This is working on the on a triangular grid, and what the student did here is, this is part of the second part of the project, which is students were required to create mazes. And I told them the material is open, you can do with whatever material you want. So what she did is she created a maze out of wood to try to give the design, or trying to give some interactivity to the artwork, and to show some sort of like her playfulness towards the design. And this is also for the same word. And here the students created, these are all fabricated by the students. So here, as you see that the different two-dimensional designs, when they are converted to three-dimensional, how does the, for example, the design look like? This is also another design by another student. So these are all done by different students. This is part 3 of the project, because this is part of a series of workshops done even outside the class, because I was doing a very intensive program to my students to introduce them to the Arabic script. There was, yes, but even outside the course, we had workshops. We did collaborations with the interior design students and faculty. These 3-dimensional concrete pieces are done by the interior design students as interior concrete tiles. So what the interior students did, they took the design done by the typography students and they applied it on different material, and we have it there on campus as installation. We have so many different words, but here I just selected 2. Playfulness also on the word بالعربي, more compositions. So here working on scale, working on repetition, working on positive, negative. Working on the corners of the actual lettering style here also. So I'm showing you here a slide. These are different basmala, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, created by the father of the Kufic script, whose name is Yusuf Ahmed. From Egypt, God bless his soul. So here what he did, he created different variations of the basmala, which is in the name of God, basically. So this was the inspiration, and I thought, okay, now we need to do basmala with the students. So what I did is I launched this is all one project, by the way, but the project has branched. So here, these are different interpretations of the students with the basmala. And here, more options by different students, compositional studies, different posters. So here, as you see the pointed, you see the stylized. And this project was really, it was a beautiful project to work with the students, especially that it was selected to be exhibited in Al Burda Festival in Dubai, Expo. So what we did here is the students' work was presented in a very big exhibition and festival. And the result, this is the installation. And right now, what I will show you is I will show you an animation. I don't know, maybe we can show the animations after, because I'm not sure why it's being. I can show the animations by the end of the presentation, because I have some maybe 4 or 5 animations. Is that fine? Are you fine with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. This is a project. This was a senior project by a student. Also, all the colors are manipulated, so her colors were different, using gold and turquoise. So what the student here did is she created the 99 names of God using different grids and modules, from the square to the triangular to the hexagonal, etc. So she created the different grids and worked with the names based on the grid, and she formed like a very thick book, and her project was actually one of the top projects. Right now I'm showing you a logo design that I created for the college for the graduation exhibition and catalog, saying exit in English and takharuj in Arabic. But here, as you see, these are different variations with different styles and proportions. Right now, I'm showing you my work, personal work. This is for Ramadan Kareem. It's like Ramadan greeting. So working with a square, but with a twist, trying to give it some sort of architectural inspirations from the mosque, and integrating or being inspired by the architecture and the calligraphy to create the words. This is the Arabic word for, it says tick, which is when we have, because we have a bit of some electric problem, big problem in Lebanon. So what happens is the electricity goes on and off very quickly. So here also taking the style of like the electric, like thunder little icon, and adding it to the word tick, just to give some sort of playfulness. So what you can do, it doesn't have to be all religious, it doesn't have to be all very strict and formal. You can work in a fun way. You can create even jokes. You can do some sort of for example, quotes or slogans or statements, or you can do different things, and you can work playfully. It doesn't have to be very serious. This is one of the projects that I enjoyed working on. It is titled Sawasiya. Sawasiya is the Arabic for equality, some sort of, and this is, it says, An-nasu sawasiya ka'asnan al-misht, which is the Arabic translation of people are equal, literal translation, people are equal like the teeth of the comb. So how the teeth of the comb are equal. So this was a project that I did in the pandemic. And so I used the dotted Kufic style. So I created different variations with different dots to create the comb. With also the calligraphy, so also the illustration with the calligraphy. And this is an aluminum created or actually fabricated with aluminum, and it's around 2 meter width. I have an animation to show you based on that. We can show the animations later. And here we go. Just as the ahlan wa sahlan, which is like the Arabic way of saying greeting. And also working with the dotted Kufic style, here showing you that even when you work with different scale, how the design can differ, depends on what you want out of the design that you are designing. So basically, this is the presentation, and if we have room for the animations, we can. Just let me check the time. Are we good with time?
Absolutely. Okay. And we are really excited, especially about your animation as well.
Okay. So right now, what I will do is I will share the animations. Sorry. Animations are here in a folder. Okay, we will start. I have a couple. We can show as many as you like. We can start with the basmala, which is in the name of God. And so this is an animation I did for the same Burda festival, and as you see here, so just trying to give it a bit of dynamicness, movement, working on some sort of like an optical illusion, depth, variety in style, just to show the richness of the calligraphy. Okay, so this is the first one. And this is an in general animation, but maybe I can show you here something else. Typo. Okay, this is an animation of last year. I did a workshop in Taipei, and the students weren't all Arab students, so they were from different civilizations. So they created different words inspired by their scripts, or actually their languages, but using the Kufic script as an inspiration. So I will show you the animation for that. Artwork created. Okay. What else? Okay, the comb open with the okay. I just want to mention that the animation has been done in collaboration with a very old student I had a long time, not old, he is young. And now he is a professor actually, and he is now working as a professional designer, just in collaboration, just to give him credit. His name is Mahmoud Kansu. Also we have some other maybe more fun animations here. Okay, so that. What else? We have this one. So right now you saw the true colors of the graphics. So basically, this is basically the animations. That's something maybe we can see at some other time. So yeah. Okay.
Nadia, thank you so much for sharing your expertise in such an engaging way. And I think we especially loved your geometric-based approach, your animations, and also highly up-to-date examples. Thanks a lot. So now let's open these last few minutes for questions. There are a lot of questions, and I'm sure there will be more soon.
Yes,
so,
of course.
Just go to the chat, and then the first question is from Teddy.
Okay.
My question is, does the origin of the creator have any sort of impact on their artwork? The origin, maybe Teddy means which country with which culture, I think. The person have as a background. And next, and if not, if there is not an impact, what do you think is a heavy factor on their inspirations, on their artwork?
So here, Teddy means that the calligraphic style, the origin, or he means the creator or the student or the designer who is working What
Okay.
exactly?
Yeah,
Yes.
let's ask Teddy directly. Teddy, are you here?
Yes, Teddy,
Yes, I'm here, ma'am.
yes.
Good.
Yes.
Just ask.
My question is, if whether the origin of the person itself, the creator of the artwork, does it have any impact on their artwork? Because there are very many factors behind that. Maybe the way they're living and so on and so forth. We can see a significant differences in Indonesia as well. If you come from which island or which
Yes.
province, it has a certain significant impact on their artworks. I was curious if they do have the same feel in the Middle East.
Yes, thank you, Teddy, for the question. Actually, yes, of course. We are, or everyone, especially designers and artists, are influenced by their cultures, because where we come from influences what we do, of course. Like, for example, I gave you the example, for instance, on the barbed wires, let's say. That barbed wires was done by my students back in Lebanon, where they see plenty of barbed wires wherever they go. Like, you can see it on the borders, you can see it in the streets sometimes, just don't cross from here. So that was some sort of an inspiration from their environment and from the place where they live in, and they took that as inspiration to integrate it in their project. Another example is the one from the Syrian mosaic. Also, so that was done by a student from Syria, which actually she took that as inspiration and she tried to implement it in her design to give it some sort of like a cultural, a more specific way. Here also in the UAE, my students are very culturally aware. Like, for example, there is the Sadu pattern, which is basically also students work a lot on these some sort of patterns and they embed them in their designs, whether they're aware of it or not. That of course they are, because they are designers and they need to do research to understand that the design elements that they use, what do they stand for? Are they appropriate for their design? So this is, we're talking here more into, for example, if they're doing branding and they're doing identity, or they're creating some sort of a font or a package, they need to understand, is this inspiration from the culture the appropriate choice, yes or no? This is what they need to answer based on the research that they do. So definitely the culture and the inspiration from what is around us and from the background, especially for ones who go also deeper into knowing their cultures and into digging deeper into the treasures that they have from the ancestors, definitely it influences what they do. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Welcome.
Nada.
Welcome.
Thank you too, Nada. And now maybe one last question, because we don't have a lot of time. Time flies. Your lecture was so inspiring, and animation especially. And so let's see. Yeah. So Nadia asks, first of all, she said, impressive. We all think that. Which software do you use to make the Arabic typography animation? So it's about the software you use.
Yes, it's Adobe After Effects, but the artwork is created on Adobe Illustrator, sometimes with Adobe InDesign for certain areas, but mainly Adobe Illustrator, and later on Adobe After Effects.
Mm-hmm. We do the same here in Germany, at least, and I think in Indonesia is also comparable. Okay, so one last question from lovely Ayunda, sorry. I'm really curious about the design process. I think I'm interested in how to make each typography not only aesthetically pleasing, but also readable.
Yes, the readability part is very important, especially if you want to create communication out of what you want to design. So, for example, if a student is working on a logo, for example, they need to, of course, make it easy to be read. So there is a challenge to create a design that is beautiful, yet it is readable. So if we're talking about square Kufic as a style, it is not the only style. I mean, it's one of the styles that someone can work with. Of course, they need to work on the readability part. In the parts that you saw with the students where they had to do posters, in certain areas, I told them you can play on the legibility part because you see, if you have visited, for example, or if you looked at certain calligraphic pieces, sometimes there would be labeling underneath just to explain, because it doesn't have to be super, super readable. But I think since we are teaching visual communication and we are teaching students design, at a certain point, the design was, especially if it is done for communication purposes, it has to be readable. So it's not a one layer first design that they do that gets picked. They have to work on it. Also, maybe they work on color, because as I told you, I created everything in black and white and red for the presentation, but working on color, working on scale, working on stroke, working on maybe layering, because some of the designs were layered into different layers with material. So it is very important, the readability part. Sometimes you can create some abstract compositions, but if there is some sort of a labeling underneath, like for example, if it's in English written or something, but then the Arabic is a little bit abstract, you can work on something like that, especially if you're working on like initials or depending on the design. So it all depends on the project, what the project is, the project brief, but definitely to create a readable, legible design that is interesting is the best thing that you can do, rather than going into the complicated. Could be complex, but it doesn't have to be complicated.
There are some more questions and a lot of thank yous in the chat box. It has been really such a great honor to have you with us today. Dear Nada, thank you so much. We were quite impressed by your work and your lively lecture. Thanks a lot. And yeah, give Nada a warm applause. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Good luck, everyone. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Nada. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. Take care, my
Yeah,
dear.
bye.
Thank you. Bye.